Hello, once more, everyone, and welcome back to my channel back here on YouTube, doing Week 8 of my 2023 Big Ten football prediction video series. As you can see, there's the record after Week 7, 57-9 through the last few weeks, as I'm back at it here in Week 8, doing the regular version of the prediction video. As we get into the day, we have 6 great games on schedule this weekend. Last weekend was a weekend I went 4-2. Unfortunately, another 6 games this week. Let's get right into it. We have some good rivalries this week for trophies. At least 2 of those trophy games this week. So let's get right on into it here in the Week 8 Big Ten prediction video series. With our first game of the weekend coming up, this one's going to be a very fun one. Ohio State and Penn State going into it in the Big Ten. This one's the game of the week on Fox at 12 at noon Eastern time, and it's 2 teams that are unbeaten still in the Big Ten East, right behind Michigan, who was 7-0. And this matchup's going to be one of those ones that's going to be a close game, I think, maybe even low scoring. But last time they played in Columbus 2 years ago, it was both teams scored over 35 points in the matchup 2 years ago in Columbus. And Ohio State's coming in on a 3-game winning streak in the rivalry going into this year that I know of. They last lost in Penn State a few years back. So, looking at this matchup, this is going to be one of those close games. I like Ohio State here to get the win against Penn State. Unfortunately, I don't know if Penn State can survive in Columbus. It's going to be a hostile environment. I think this is going to be their first loss of the year. But I think Penn State still has a chance later on there against Michigan. So I'll have to wait and see what happens with Ohio State and Michigan after this matchup and see what happens with Penn State after this week. Because Penn State still has Michigan on the schedule to beat. Maybe. And who knows, maybe all 3 will be close. Have a tight race for the Big Ten East. I like the Buckeyes in this matchup going into Week 8 to start us out. As we move on to the next matchup, staying in the Big Ten East, with Indiana, and Rutgers coming into this matchup. Rutgers is one of those teams in the Big Ten East that is having a good season. They're still hanging in there in the Big Ten East. Indiana, though, they're falling apart. They're near the bottom of the division, right behind Michigan State, unfortunately, which we'll talk about shortly. This matchup looks like it's going to be a matchup where I think Rutgers is going to get the upper hand. I think Rutgers is going to walk away with a win on the road in Bloomington on Saturday afternoon. For some reason, that's what I just think overall in this matchup. I kind of like Rutgers, and I think that's what's going to happen. And Rutgers looks like they can be a team that's in bowl contention after this week, going the rest of the way forward. So I'm going to take Rutgers on the road in this matchup against the Hoosiers this weekend. Which brings us to our second rivalry game for a trophy. In Iowa, for Florida Rosedale, between Iowa and Minnesota. The Golden Gophers coming into this matchup against the Hawkeyes. Iowa coming in at 6-1, shocking Wisconsin 15-6 last week on the road. And that was a game I predicted Wisconsin was going to win last week against Iowa, and I was wrong. Iowa ended up winning 15-6. Special teams with safety and field goals. And this game this weekend between Iowa and Minnesota, it's a rivalry for Florida Rosedale, in where Minnesota hasn't won in Iowa City since 1998. 1999 in this matchup, unfortunately. So 24 years since Minnesota last won a game in Iowa. I think it's going to be one of those games that's going to be low scoring for Iowa, and Minnesota might be stopped quite a bit as well. This might turn into Minnesota-Nebraska Part 2. If everyone remembers, the first game of the Big Ten season way back when, earlier this year, was Nebraska at Minnesota. The final score was 13-10. I think it's going to be the same thing. We're just going to be low scoring, field goals and stuff. Maybe defensive plays, safeties. We might see in this matchup. I'm going to take Iowa to get the win at home, go 7-1 and remain in first place in the Big Ten West. And unfortunately, they're going to move up in the top 25 if they do, and then they have a clear path forward with 4 games remaining after this week, which I think which they should be favoring the rest of the way, as I'd take the Hawkeyes to win Florida Rosedale again for an eighth consecutive season. Moving on to the next matchup. Between the bottom feeders of the Big Ten West. In Lincoln, Nebraska. Nebraska, and Northwestern. Two teams near the bottom of the Big Ten. Unfortunately, for this matchup, it's one of those matchups where do you like? Which team do you like? Which team's going to score? Which team's going to make plays? Northwestern has been one of those teams this year that's surprised me a bit by getting some wins. Nebraska is another one of those teams. They've found ways to get wins as well. This game's going to be one of those games where I think both teams are coming in. They're just looking to have a good game. And unfortunately, I think Northwestern going out there to Lincoln, that's going to be a heartbreak for them. I think Nebraska pulls it off at home this week and gets a win against Northwestern. So give me the Huskers in the matchup on Saturday. Moving on to our last afternoon game before we go into the Big Ten night game coming up. Between Illinois and Wisconsin. Wisconsin headed into Champaign, Illinois. The storyline in this matchup that I'll talk about is Illinois upsets against Wisconsin in the last decade in Champaign. It seems like every few years or every 3 or 4 years when Illinois and Wisconsin meet up, when Wisconsin comes to Champaign, Illinois to play Illinois on the road, it seems like it's a matchup where Illinois tends to win against Wisconsin, and that's happened a few times in the last 10 years or so. I think the last time it happened was back in 2019. Illinois hosted Wisconsin and won at home, and then again it happened a few years before that as well. So it's happened twice in the last decade, at least. I think we might see a matchup like that again where after Wisconsin's letdown against Iowa last week, 15-6, I think Wisconsin and Illinois, this might be one of those games to watch to see what happens. And I think Illinois and Wisconsin, this is going to be a close game. But I see the Badgers going on the road and getting a win this year in Champaign, knowing that Illinois has beaten Wisconsin at home in the last 10 years a few times. And I think Illinois went to Madison once in the last 10 years as well, and one possibly as well. I'll have to go double check and look at the stats on that. I'm going to take the Badgers, though, on the road this week to get a win in Champaign, to get a win on Saturday afternoon. Moving on to the next matchup, the night game of the Big Ten. Yes, we have a Big Ten night game this week. A rivalry for Paul Bunyan's trophy. Michigan 7-0 going into East Lansing to play the Michigan State Spartans. This one's going to be one of those matchups this week, which will be interesting to see on paper and interesting to see how it affects both teams. With the storyline that I saw today that Michigan has been accused of sign stealing, and they're under investigation from the NCAA for that, which is shocking. Only Michigan can get in trouble for that. They're the number 2 team in the country as well. So how's that going to affect them? I think it's going to give Michigan State players and their coaches a little bit more feeling to say, oh, look, you've been accused of sign stealing. Let's go beat them. But no, in Michigan, even though they're ranked number 2 and 7-0, I don't think they're going to have any issues with it. I think they're going to win easily in this matchup and go to 8-0, be the first Big Ten team to get their 8th win of the year. For Michigan State, on the other hand, they're one of those teams that fired a head coach this year because of sexual harassment. So, but I'm not saying that's the issue. The issue now is Michigan's sign stealing issue. Well, it's the third Big Ten team to have being NCAA news and have issues with their program again. But I do think Michigan gets the win. And after last year's rivalry game, Michigan State and Michigan, there was a Michigan State player last year. Some issues that happened after the game last year where a player got arrested and both universities got involved after the game. Because in Michigan, they share the same locker room tunnel. I don't know if anything is going to carry over to this year. When any fights break out, there might be. But I do think Michigan still gets the win of this matchup. and remains unbeaten in the top 2, maybe even be number 1 after this week. As we have it for the 2023 Big Ten prediction video for Week 8. Recap who I'm taking. First off, I'm starting with the rivalry in Columbus between Ohio State and Penn State. Taking Buckeyes, and that might won them. In Bloomington, Indiana, I'm taking Rutgers Scarlet Knights to get a win there. And I'm taking Iowa over Minnesota for Florida for Rosedale. In Lincoln, Nebraska, go with the Cornhuskers over the Northwestern Wildcats. And Champaign, Illinois, I'm taking Wisconsin over Illinois on the road after their letdown against Iowa last week. And then in East Lansing, I'm taking Michigan over Michigan State in the nightcap in the Big Ten. If you like today's video, you know what to do. Please comment below if your big favorite Big Ten team is playing and if you think they're going to win. And please also don't forget to watch, like, subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends to do the same if they've not done so yet already. And also don't forget to hit that notification button below so you don't want to upload a new video. With that being said, have a nice day and stay safe. And also look for my videos this weekend. I'll be at the Iowa-Minnesota game this weekend. So look for some videos from the game, the Iowa football game against Minnesota. Have those up on Saturday night after the game. With that being said, have a nice day, stay safe, and peace out. And I'll see you in the Week 9 predictions back here next Thursday. Bye for now, and stay safe, everyone.